What's up, guys? mcstu here. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everybody had a great holiday season and a good New Year celebration on top of that. We're back in the saddle, and we're going to talk about some ships today. So I first started putting this video together. It was going to be more of a build video on my favorite ship of 2023. And I started thinking about, okay, all the ships that came out. And that kind of morphed into looking at whether or not the ships that were released last year, 2023, were good. And so I wanted to just have kind of a conversation about that and give you guys my thoughts and see what you all had to think down in the comment section. Now, this is going to be a review on Z-Store ships, specifically lockbox ships. I don't generally cover a lot on that because they're just so expensive. They're out of reach for a lot of people that play the game. And so I like these videos to be relevant to as many people as possible. So this is going to cover basically C-Store ships, either in bundles or standalone. And we'll get into a little more detail on those two things also in just a moment. So 2023, let's take a look at what we got here. So we'll start with the first C-Store ships that we got over the year. And if I miss some, I apologize. If I do, definitely let me know. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but just kind of the noteworthy and, give you my opinion on whether or not 2023 was a good year for C-Store ships. Now, C-Store ships are ones that you can buy in-game for Zen. Zen's your equivalent to V-Bucks or Robux or whatever the in-game currency of a particular game. You use real money, you get Zen, and you can buy them. These are the most economic ways to get ships, less the events where obviously you can get them for free. But other than the free ships, this is going to be the least expensive way to go about picking up premium ships in-game. When they're not on sale, they run $30 US. You'll have to do the math if you're somewhere else. When they're on sale, they're $24. I used to think that was pretty expensive, but, with inflation and, everything that we're seeing in other games that I play, that's pretty reasonable. Now, let's just talk about the economics of the game a little bit in terms of real money. It's reasonable for these C-Store ships. You can put together very good builds with combinations of these ships. If you're new to Star Trek Online, premium tier 6 ships come with starship traits. Starship traits are something that can be assigned to your captain on any build or to a particular ship. You can have up to 7 of them. Is it 7 or is it 6? I think it's 6. No, 1, 2, 3. You can unlock 7 of them is what you can have total now. Stock, you'll have 4 slots available to you. So to put together halfway decent builds, you need to have some premium ships in order to have starship traits. Those are going to be the most impactful things. And so that's really where I focus when we're looking at, doing budget builds and things like that. They do require some of these $30 or $24 ships when they're on sale. That's not to say you can't, earn this stuff free via the dilithium exchange and different things like that. And again, if you're new to the game, some of this might sound a little alien to you, but just Google or type into, YouTube or into my channel search dilithium exchange and you'll see what we're talking about. But essentially you can exchange in-game currencies for the Zen, which is a nice feature. Now, even without any of these, you can still put together effective builds that'll get you through basically any of the content on advanced. You're going to struggle a little bit until you get good at it, but with the right skill level and putting together a ship, you can put together more than adequate builds without having any of this stuff. But if you want to really start to excel and you're really interested in the shipbuilding side of it and furthering, the damage output or tanking or support or whatever it is that you want to do, having some of these C-Store ships is important. So let's take a look at this first bundle. I didn't mean to get too off subject there. And again, apologize for the birds. My living conditions are still in flux at the moment while we're building the new house. So you might hear some birds in the background. All right, so the first bundle that we got this year was the 13th anniversary bundle. You could purchase this complete as a bundle, or you could buy them individually, which was really, really nice. A lot of the bundles in the past, not all of them, have been all or nothing. And that was a real bummer because some of them can be pretty expensive, $200 to $300, depending on the configuration of the bundle. But being able to purchase an anniversary bundle, ships individually like that is really nice. They did sweeten the deal if you bought the whole bundle last year by putting a lockbox ship. It's lockbox, not promo. The sticks in it. And so overall, the value of this particular bundle was pretty good. The noteworthy ships are obviously the Hydra. I did some polling on that when it came out. It was by far the community's favorite. It's an excellent, excellent ship. Cannon scatter volley platform. Would certainly recommend that ship. It is very, very nice. The Eagle, which is going to be the one down here on the bottom. This is actually a remake or a reskin of the ship that comes out of the back of the Odyssey. There was is a tier 5 version of it that was already in the game, but they reskinned it. It looks very nice, and it is an excellent, excellent ship, especially for torpedo builds. Very good ship. The other ships that came in the bundle were not bad by any stretch, but not extremely noteworthy. If you picked one up and it's your first ship, you're doing okay. But if you look at my video on top 5 traits, most people are going to do some sort of energy weapon build, and there are some traits that are just going to be there regardless of what kind of energy weapon build you're doing for the most part. And so if it's your first ship, the ships are nice. You can do okay with these other ships, but having some of the ones that have those basic traits are certainly going to be better for you, like the one that comes off the Avenger and a couple of the others, depending on the kind of build you're putting together. So overall, this particular bundle was nice. I did not buy the whole bundle. I was tempted because the sticks having that on account unlock, which is this ship here, was nice, but again, it was a lot of money, and I ended up just picking up the Hydra. I do have some tier 6 coupons, and at some point I will pick up the Eagle. It's really, really good. A couple of my buddies have it and love it. I just haven't had the time to pick it up and actually play with it with everything else that I have. So, but that is definitely on the list, and I definitely think that's worthwhile. Let's move on to the next here. We have the Legendary First Strike bundle. I wasn't a huge fan of these ships. Now, if you were an Akira fan, this was, you were pumped about this. The ship itself is capable and is a decent ship. One of the main noteworthy portions of this included the Maelstrom torpedo on it, which was really a meta changer. It changed the mechanics to a certain degree of how torpedoes could be used, and since then, in events later in 2023, last year, there was some similar torpedoes or torpedo that you could earn that was very similar in terms of the mechanics. Super hard hitting torpedo, and the ships themselves are pretty decent. So, not bad. Again, if you're a brand new player and you're looking at your first ship, you got kind of 2 roads to go down. It depends on what kind of player. If you're here just for Star Trek and the experience, pick the ship that you like and want to look at all day long flying around. That's number one. Okay, we're here to have fun, and so that should be number one. Now, if you're here because you play games and you like to do, high performance and the best that you can, and you're very interested in the building aspect of it, then there's other ships that, again, you should look at first for building up those starship traits, consoles, things like that. I'll link my top 5 C-Store ships. It's the 101 kind of basics, and I'll link that down in the description for you guys. So overall, bundle wasn't bad. It brought some new things and mechanics to the game, and that is definitely a welcome anytime that they do that. We don't get a lot of that kind of thing these days, and so this was a pretty exciting bundle from that standpoint. Next, I'm kind of skipping around here, but next we got the Legendary. It's actually a bundle that we got here. I broke it up, and I probably shouldn't have. The Battle Cruiser bundle. It basically came with the Fortescue and with the Legendary Avenger. And the Legendary Avenger, the standard C-Store ship of this, is probably my first pick in terms of first ship you should buy. It's a halfway decent ship. It's pretty old these days, but the trait that comes on it is really just a staple 101 basic. It essentially increases your firing cycle haste and reduces your energy weapon costs, which are kind of a fundamental building block for any energy weapon build. The Legendary that came out is similar to the Inquiry, which is a promo ship, and arguably the Legendary version is as good, if not slightly better. And the biggest selling point on this is that if you buy this bundle, you get this ship on account unlock across all of your characters. If you were picking up the Inquiry and you got it from the lockbox, or from the event campaign, that's only unlockable on one character, and those cost a lot of money. So in terms of value, this bundle just for that particular ship alone is very, very good. These you could not buy individually, so you would get this ship, all the different variations of the skins, and then you would also get the Bortesque, which was a pretty decent ship as well. If you're into the Klingon faction side of things, then this is something nice to add to it. But you did have to buy both of these, or you would have to buy both of these in the bundle if you wanted to go ahead and pick it up today or when it had came out on release. So that's a little bit of a downside. But again, if you have money to spend and you're super into the game, then this was a pretty darn good value because it gave you one of the best energy weapon platforms in the entire game to be able to build on across the entire account. So this bundle from that standpoint was definitely a big win. Really the only drawback is that you have to purchase the entire bundle in order to get the ship, and that's two ships, and they weren't identical either. So it's not like in some cases you'll buy bundles and they're variations of the same thing, and that kind of feels bad when you're doing that. So you are getting two unique ships, and they're both decent, one of which is very, very good. And then again, you put that on top of it being a account-wide unlock and the ship itself being as good, if not better, than the promo version, which you can only get on one character, just really kind of puts that over the top. Lastly, and I kind of saved this for the end because I was initially, like I said, going to go down this route and kind of pick my favorite ship. My favorite ship of the year came from the Federation Flashback bundle. The ships that they released in it, I thought all of them looked really good. They also introduced a new mechanic for the starship trait. So generally a starship trait is going to have, most of the time it's like an if-then, right? So if you activate this, then this other thing happens, and it's kind of baked in. Sometimes it'll be if you activate this, this, or this, then this particular thing happens. With this particular bundle, what they did with these traits is they gave you, they're almost like multiple traits built into one. So depending on the kind of specialization seating that you're using on a particular ship, you would get a different result. And let's see if we can get some description of that here so I don't misquote. And if I click on this, will it give me a breakdown individually? We're doing it live, guys. Okay, here we go. Starship trait. Okay, so starship trait. So for the Justicar here, if you activate Intel, you get a random subsystem offline. If you activate a command specialization ability, you get a taunt. Temporal ops add stacks of entropy, and on and on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basically traits kind of built into this. Now, how useful this is with the combinations they did, you can kind of argue they're very kind of build specific, but it does give you a lot of flexibility. And my hope is that this leaves the door open for more of these kinds of things in the future. It's really a different kind of structure of putting, starship traits together, and gives you a lot more flexibility. Could they, maybe put stuff together that would be even more useful? Probably. But the fact that they're doing, again, something different and kind of mixing up that mechanic that's been in the game for a long time with something a little bit different like this is very encouraging. And I hope to see that kind of, design process, going forward with the starship traits. Now, let's just take a look at this particular bundle, and I think we'll have to go back here. So we got the Justicar in this, and spoiler alert, that's going to be my favorite ship of the year. We'll talk about that in a moment. We had the Augur Temporal Science Vessel. It was okay. It wasn't the best in the world, but again, the Starship trait does have that dynamic, different if-then scenario. It is different from the Justicar. I don't remember there being really a lot on that I found useful. And then we have the Cyclone, which was something the community was asking for a while, as a tier 6 upgraded version of this, which we got. It looks very, very good. And if I remember correctly, the Starship trait on this, the combinations of things that it offered were potentially useful. Now, these, again, are going to be very, very specific to a build, unlike the emergency power cycle trait that we talked about a little bit earlier from the Avenger. That trait is one of those high utility traits, right? And that's why it's on the top 5 list, because if you're using energy weapons, you want to use that. It just works on everything. It's not very specific and narrow in terms of these kinds of traits. So for instance, on the Cyclone, if you use an intel ability, you get increased damage and bonus flanking damage, which is great, you know, especially if you're using this trait on this particular ship. It's already going to have extra flanking damage. It's maneuverable, and you can really make this trait shine by using intel along with that. And so again, I really like what they did here, where one trait gives you a lot of little options that you can fit into a build. I wouldn't try and build around these traits, but these traits are something that potentially can augment, you know, a build that you're already putting together, especially if you don't have a lot of stuff. But you have some. You can kind of look through these and say, okay, I have an intel ship. How can I build around this or add this into using these intel abilities or the miracle worker or whatever it may be on the particular ships you have? So it gives you a little more flexibility, even though none of them are super, you know, overpowered, if you will. So again, big, 10 out of 10 in terms of that process of design and doing something a little bit different there with the way that they put the traits together. Now, my favorite ship, as I alluded to earlier, for 2023 is the Justicar Command Cruiser, and I love this ship. I personally like the way it looks. This was, I think, originally the Star Cruiser. I'm probably screwing that up. There was only a Tier 5 version of it. This is something that people had asked for quite a while, and they gave it to us, so that was nice. We had a lot of those kind of ships last year where it was stuff people just wanted the ship, and it seems like we got it. This ship, and I'll just kind of do a quick kind of overview on it. It's Command Cruiser, and why don't we actually look at it in game? That'll probably be better since I already have it up. I did kind of kit bash mine a little bit, so it's not exactly the stock. Changed the nacelles. I just really like the way the ship looks. It looks like a hot rod. For being a larger cruiser, it handles really, really well on top of that. I have a couple different builds that I put on this, but let's just quickly kind of go over the ship itself. If you guys are interested, I can do a full build video on this ship. This is what I was originally going to do when I was getting ready to record this evening, but thought it would be a little bit better maybe just to review what was added to the market over the last year, especially for your newer players or returning players that are looking to maybe pick something up from the C-Store that's newer, or maybe, you know, for next year's event campaign if you're going to get the coupons. So what I have currently on here is basically what we would call, or what I would call, a budget fire at will selfish tank, I guess is a good way to say it. So the ship is built like a tank, but it doesn't have a lot in the way of taunting and debuffing for the team. So essentially it's a fun build, fire at will, which I really enjoy. Beams going all over the place. I'll put some video up on the screen now so you can just kind of see it in action a bit. It feels good. I like the way it looks. It's very thematic, and being fire at will, it does attract, you know, some extra attention, and we'll get into a little bit more of that threat part of it here in a moment. But I just enjoy playing it. It's hard to kill. It flies nice. It looks nice. I just like it. Now, the other part that makes this ship nice is, so let's talk about what you can do with it. So we can tank, obviously. You can do any kind of beam builds on it, no problem. Fire at will, which is mostly what I have on it. Beam overload, which again I think would be very fun on this ship as well. You can't do science, obviously. There's no secondary deflector. I mean, you could, it just wouldn't be really good. This also makes a pretty decent torpedo build platform, which is nice. So really the only thing you just absolutely can't do with it is do cannon scatter volley, because you can't put dual cannons on this ship because it is a cruiser. So if we look at the layout here on the seating, and this is really what makes this shine. So we have double command seating with a full spec, which is really nice. This used to be something back in the day you got more of, you know, from promo and lockbox ships, but in the past year or two, we've seen more of full specialization seating on these. And if you're new, specialization, so this is an engineering slot, that's an engineering ability. I could put engineering abilities here, but this is a command specialization. So I have concentrated firepower, which I'm using for myself because I have a torpedo on here, but it does also help the team if anybody else is around with a torpedo, although again, this isn't really a support tank. And then we have suppression Suppression Barrage 3, which basically reduces the amount of damage that enemies are doing to you and anybody else. So again, I kind of built this like a tank, but there's not a lot in terms of helping the team on this particular build. But again, so with this, you could do torpedo build since you have concentrated firepower. You could do call artillery barrage. It's got a very nice layout for what this is. Being that it's a 4-4, you can have a lot of mines in the back, your torpedoes in the front, and this could do very, very well in this torpedo role. The other part that I really like about this, especially from the tanking side, is that if you're someone that wants to get into tanking, you haven't done any tanking, this ship really offers, it comes as kind of a full package. And it's not to say that you don't really need to do more, get more stuff to be really effective. But when we look at the items that come on the ship, they're all lend themselves uniquely to tanking. So if we take a quick look at the console that we have, console is going to give you a huge boost to damage resistance and hull cap by 20%. That's very, very good. The clicky, I don't know, it makes you stop shooting. It does a lot of physical damage. I'm kind of back and forth on that. I don't know if you're going to get any kind of taunt from that, but the console that comes on it is decent, and it gives you very good survivability stats. Now, if we go back to the traits as we talked about earlier and just take a look at that on this ship, this, I'm in the fleet one, so let me just pull up back to the wiki here. I have the fleet version of it, so there is, 2 versions. If you're unfamiliar with the fleet ship side of ships, then just throw that into my YouTube channel. There's a full explanation of what that is. But if we look at the starship trait for this ship, so as a tank, we're going to be running command. That's really important for a tank to have command abilities. Again, it's not to say that you can't, but when we're talking about best in slot or best in slot abilities, command is going to be the best. This particular trait, when I use command abilities, we are getting a taunt. Unfortunately, this is not an AoE taunt, so it's not as good as some of the other taunts in the game, but it still gives you that. And using fire at will, you're tapping, good amount of enemy, especially with suppression barrage, because it's running for a duration. Everybody that you hit gets suppressed. You're getting a lot of taunt out there. And so, running this ship as a tank, this is that if-then that you're going to get out of that particular trait. And so when you look at this trait and you look at the console that comes on the ship, it's an excellent tanking platform, especially for a beginner. So if you were to start off with this ship, there are some other things that you would want to pick up. Like history will remember is kind of a must-have. As we talked about, as I mentioned multiple times, emergency power, our emergency weapon cycle is must-have for any kind of energy weapon build. But if you just had, these first 3, you could be okay. ETM is another really good one. This basically, if you manage it correctly, will extend your fire at will. But these first 4 traits, one of which comes on the ship, you have this, you could tank any environment if you get good enough, as someone that runs a tank, and you build the rest of the ship outright without spending tons of money. On this particular build, I really went out of my way to not use Lobby stuff. I don't think I have anything Lobby on here. This is all mission reward, fleet gear, and also we have a tier 4 ship console that I grabbed, the M6 computer, which you can buy for dilithium. So all of this you can get off from the exchange for not too bad, or the fleet, or your reputation system. But again, if you're wanting to put together, fairly effective builds for advance, it is going to require some of these starship traits. All of these starship traits come from the C store. And I really try and make sure when I do these kind of build videos, and this isn't a full build video, but that you can put them together by not having to gamble and not having to do these things that can be very, very expensive. So I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but this ship, I ran a couple just test runs, having fun, and it's averaging in between 120 and 150 DPS on just Pug ISA runs. That is really, really good. When you look at, at least the statistics you can get from most of the DPS meters and boards, 90% of players in the game are, doing sub 50. And that's okay. If everyone's doing sub 50 in advance, then you're having fun and you're moving through it. Some people, though, they enjoy the build process like myself, and getting those numbers up. It's not to poop on anybody. It's just to say to myself, hey, you did a good job on this build. It's the payoff, right? That it works. In some cases, it's not even about the damage. How many attacks did I take in? How much damage was I able to absorb and keep the rest of the team alive? Those are the things that I really enjoy about this game after playing it for so long. And this ship again, does a good job at being versatile, has a lot of utility. What comes on it's very good for tanking, but the platform itself is a good energy weapons platform minus cannons, and is a very good tank, and can be a very decent torpedo build platform as well. So Justicar, for me personally, is my favorite ship of the year. So let's just recap here, guys. Overall, I think that in terms of ship releases, for C-Store ship releases, Star Trek Online did a great job. I think that the offerings were good, they were fair, and reasonably priced for what they are. Now, we can say $30 is a lot of money, and it is, especially to some people. On some weeks, $30 is more than I have. I mean, I'm just like the rest of you guys here. But if you play any other game, that's what stuff costs. Now, if you're not a big MMO player, there's a lot of people, this is their only MMO, and I get it. You buy a game normally for $30-40 and you're done. You got the whole game and you play it. MMOs just aren't like that. And relatively speaking, this game is inexpensive to at least be able to access, play it, and do fairly decent. And at the same time, you could still play the entire game for free, never spending anything, over time accumulating stuff that you want, and having a good time. So I think the model is somewhat fair, at least in terms of the item shop. Forget about the MUDs market. Oh, we're server disconnecting. Forget about the MUDs market. Forget about lockboxes and gambling. That goes outside of anything that I'm normally going to promote, because that does get inexpensive, and the lack of transparency on the drop rates and stuff is a big issue. I almost made this video about server performance as well, activations, but we'll save that for another one. Here's a good example of some problems here. I hope they do something on the server performance and that kind of thing would be nice, but we'll see what happens with the changes to DECA and some of the other things that are happening on the back end in STO. But again, 2023 I think was a good year. The offerings they put out were unique. They were decent ships. They look great. The polling that I did on my channel, people were pretty happy with the stuff. You're always going to have haters. They don't want to pay anything and that kind of thing. And I get that too. I mean, some people can't, so I mean, I'm not pooping on anybody. I get it. I played this game for free for years, before I started spending any money. It's my first MMO. And again, I was one of those people. You buy a game, and I bought the game. Continuing to pay to seem kind of crazy. But fortunately, that's the nature of MMOs these days for the most part. So let me know, guys, what do you think? What was your favorite ship that came out this year? Do you think that what they did offer this year was good? I'm interested to get you guys' thoughts and see what you think. What do you think of the Justicar? I think it looks great. Sometimes these ships in STO, too, it's like love it or hate it for a lot of people, but I think the ship looks good, and it seemed the community was pretty happy with it. So, again, overall, I think it was a big win. Let me know what you guys think. What else do we need to cover here before I let you go? If you're not in the Discord server, check it out. It's linked down in the description. We do giveaways in there. There's about 3,000 members. Everybody is welcomed. If you need help, build health questions, trying to find people to play with, that's a good place to check out. So definitely check out the Discord server. Let me know also, do you guys want to see a build on this? The ship's been out for a while. I generally don't do build-specific ships. I try and do builds that are more conceptual, like here's how to put together this kind of build and you can adapt it to the particular ship that you have. I find that's normally a little bit more helpful because there's so many ships in the game that everybody has different stuff. But on this particular ship, I love it so much, and I was about to make one. If that's something you guys want to see, let me know down in the comments section there. I think that covers it, guys. Till next time, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. Helps me out a bunch. You guys have a good one.